He's like, well, if my mom had balls, she would be my dad.
He's always like, WTF, mate? Saturdays are for competition again.
He was 40 points back.
Wakey, wakey, Lando. Wakey, wakey. Look at that gap.
Without Kimi Antonelli, Max wins the championship.
That's like something you'd see in the F1 movie. Is this the world champion hotline? Lando had to win his first against Max. Formula One fans, welcome to the Tyred Boys podcast. I'm your host, Justin.
And I'm Aaron. Welcome back. After a long summer break, we had the Dutch Grand Prix this weekend with some Formula One Academy action as well. A lot to get into today, so looking forward to it. We've got a sprint weekend as well, so a lot of racing and qualifying to chat about. Justin, it's good to see you. It's been a minute, but it feels good to be back.
Good to see you as well. Yeah, I've just been cooking myself in the summer sun, just dreaming of Formula One racing. So happy to be back at it. We've got some quick hitters to get through before we can talk about all the racing there at Zandvoort. So why don't we just start rolling?
Sounds good. So I'll start off here with a little IndyCar. Former Formula One driver Marcus Ericsson put together a really solid race in Canada in the IndyCar series at the Markham circuit. Took the win a couple weeks ago. So big congratulations to him. It was a bit of a chaotic race. So seeing him put together a really nice drive was fun to see. It's always nice when you see the drivers who haven't won as frequently or in a while, seeing like their families and everything in the picture-in-picture cam as they're coming around to wrap up the race and everything, cross the finish line. So very, very exciting for Marcus Ericsson and for his family there at the Canadian race at Markham. So solid race for him. The grandstands have been put up at the Madring. So we have the circuit getting ready to go. We've got that race coming up here ahead of us in a couple weeks time here for the Formula One calendar. So first race there at the Madring. We also had a little more IndyCar news with Yuki Tsunoda getting a testing session with Meyer Shank Racing for a potential 2027 IndyCar seat, which does lead us pretty well into some of the summer break news, which right ahead of the race weekend here, we had Isak Hadjar, who fractured his wrist doing some training during the summer break. Which brought Yuki Tsunoda into the Racing Bulls seat, bringing him back onto the grid for the weekend and potentially Monza, depending how that healing process goes for Isak. And then Liam Lawson being the first driver to have been demoted by Red Bull to get brought back up, even if it is just for one race. It's kind of wild that that's never happened before.
Yeah, and like interesting that they don't use their reserve driver, but it speaks to my long-running conspiracy theory, that it's just a four-seat team. They're just moving people around like interchangeably. But yeah, solid, and I'm sure we'll talk about it as the episode goes on. But I thought Tsunoda did a commendable, if not solid job stepping into these 2026 cars, having to deal with all the new deployment factors and basically all the new equipment and tools at his disposal. I thought he came in and did a really nice job. So I'm really pulling for Tsunoda to get whatever the best contract available to him is. I'd be really pulling for his success, if that's an IndyCar seat or what have you. But yeah, to connect that to the Dutch Grand Prix, yeah, like I said, I thought his performance was solid.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to talking about it a little bit more when we come around to the race recap and everything, because yeah, it was good to see Yuki back around the circuit. Performed solidly for very short notice and everything with that call up. So yeah, very, very happy for him to have that opportunity to show his stuff out on the track again. we'll move over to our "Do You Work Here" segment, which I've been leaving out the rumor mill lately because there's stuff flying around week to week. But we have some official announcements over the summer break with Max re-signing with Red Bull up until 2030. He is reportedly going to make somewhere between 110 and 115 million dollars per year with the contract. I think if he hits his bonuses and everything. So he's just got his his GT team bankrolled. He's maybe gonna think about buying an F1 team and have Verstappen racing down the road. Who knows what he'll do with all that money? But they did not spare any expense to keep him there at Red Bull.
Yeah, that sounds really exciting as well, and it puts the like you were saying, the rumors to rest. I remember there were a bunch of journalists early in the year probing, I would say, aggressively about like a seat at Mercedes with, Russell not doing so hot and things like this. Like, oh, Max, what about your exit clause? I heard a lot about that. So it's just really interesting to hear now, like, oh, he's locking in for another almost 4 years. So that's really good. And from a team signing perspective, there's the angle of you get to keep your franchise driver, your marquee driver, the guy who, if your car is good enough, he'll be able to prove it, that kind of deal. So yeah, I would say solid both for driver and team, and yeah, just for the fans as well. It doesn't feel like it would be as fun without a Max on the grid. So yeah, happy he'll be around for a few more years.
Yeah, and put my my mind at ease. I was trying to figure out, do I follow Max if he goes to a new team? Do I stay a Red Bull fan who just roots for Max? It was a lot of conflicting emotions, but fortunately
Sure.
I don't have to worry about that for a little bit of time at least. But the other big signings that we had, and I think this we talked about it a little bit with Williams and James Vowles, but we have Alex Albon re-signing for a 1 year extension to his contract through the 2027 season. Carlos Sainz re-signing on a multi-year contract. He had been linked to some conversations with Audi previously and some other teams for Carlos Sainz with conversations. I mean, I feel like all these drivers talk to as many teams as they can during their contract negotiations just to see what's out there. But um, I think
No,
that speaks.
I was just thinking about like where he would fit in the Audi slot, because to my mind, Audi's likely pretty forward thinking about Bortoleto, and my mind was just kind of thinking about the Hulkenberg angle. Like how many years does he have left? That's all. I wasn't trying to
Oh yeah,
mess
yeah.
with your flow.
No, I gotcha, and it is interesting because you have a couple of drivers at Audi who are performing pretty solidly. The car progress has come along well, and so yeah, the names being thrown out there, Signs is just he's a strong younger driver than Hulkenberg, and so I could see a team maybe making that swap, but nonetheless, I think with the two drivers staying at Williams, that kind of, in my opinion, shows that James Vowles is getting the time, at least for another year, with these two strong drivers to continue the progress with the development of the car, focus on 2027, and now they can put that driver kind of question to rest and just lock in as a group to focus on the 2027 season.
Yeah, and I wonder how much of a derail it is, like, because we always talk about cars being developed for a particular driver, them like going a style for the car. It's often most linked to conversations about the Red Bull car with Max. Like, most often you hear he likes a pointier front end, and then often the teammate on the other side of the garage, they have to drive that car as well because they are the same piece of equipment. So I wonder how much it's in Williams' best interest to keep the drivers that they've been developing these cars with while they're in this kind of like underwater phase where it's like, yeah, let's just keep that variable stable and continue kind of working in the development angle. I'm curious, how much do you think that factors in, is like keep a few variables stable while we're really trying to get an understanding of the car?
I think it's a combination of things, and I do think that there is a lot to that of stability. Um you can just focus. You aren't worried about, oh, is are we bringing this kind of development and giving this data and information to a driver who's not committed to the project necessarily. It's like, at the end of GP's tenure with Red Bull, I imagine that they will start phasing him out, sharing less information about development and all before he makes the move to McLaren. Not that McLaren necessarily need any tips and tricks from Red Bull at the moment, but um, I feel like it allows you to speak freely, to share data and information a lot more freely amongst the drivers and the sides of the garage. And I think in this particular case too, with having two veteran drivers with Sainz and Albon, you have a lot of um more detailed feedback and probably just information just based on the experience that I think is valuable in, like you said, while their heads kind of staying above, trying to stay above water at the moment.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So no matter how much the like same lineup is factoring in, like that might even not matter at all. But what you're saying could also be really important, is just having like two experienced, strong minds for racing to help them develop the car.
Yeah, so versus having two young drivers, I'm sure, and no big knock to them, but Schumacher and Mazepin probably were not providing Haas the same kind of feedback that Albon and Sainz are for Williams with that lineup. So I think it's definitely multifaceted, but I think that's a big thing, and being able to keep two big names on the roster as well, definitely for James Vowles, I think helps his bid to stay in as team principal when they've definitely flopped, kind of coming into the new regulation.
Yeah, I'd say that I'd say that's totally fair. It's interesting thinking about like the two Williams teammates. Just eye test, like without like I don't have a sheet of data in front of me to make this point. Just eye test. Albon seems to be doing better this year in the new regulation compared to Signs. Thoughts?
I I would say generally, I think Albon's been more consistent and he's had less incidents. So he's kind of flown under the radar for me a little bit, which can be a good thing. Like you're getting
I'd
data,
say that could be a
you're
good thing.
it can be, but I do think Signs has kind of that lower floor, higher ceiling kind of thing going for him this year, where when he has a really good weekend, he does look really strong, but he is having a few too many of these incidents with other drivers and things like that throughout the calendar. So I think I've heard more about Signs' drives so far this year, both good and bad, than I have about Albon's. So I'd be curious what their I'll have to take a look and see what their head to head looks like on the season.
Yeah, that's really fair to see what the data has to say. Sure, that's Jack Sparrow though, but you have heard of me, and it may not necessarily be for a good thing. Yeah, to just kind of move the conversation along, one of the jokes around the weekend that I saw, and the joke writers not too hot this weekend, not too much going on. But one of the things I did think was very funny was people people were commenting that George Russell is probably the happiest to hear about the Max Verstappen contract, because like he's safe now. The shark is not in the water anymore. Because the idea would be like, the only driver that I think Mercedes would be like willing to like go beside themselves for would be Max, but if he's locked up, George is pretty safe. So I thought that was a pretty funny joke.
Yeah, and even in the drivers press conference, they asked George about like the Max sign. They asked George and Lando about the Max signing, and both of them were kind of like, I mean, we don't really think about it that much until you guys bring it up, which I you can take that with a grain of salt. It's definitely the right PR answer. Like, yeah, I'm not worried about him coming in and taking my spot. I'm fine. I'm comfortable. But yeah, there definitely was a lot of conversation about that, and I'm sure it can't help George Russell, or it can't hurt George Russell's nightly rest. So I think he'll be okay.
That boy definitely has enough stresses going on, man. He
He
like
does.
that's at least just like one sheep guaranteed over the fence for him. But yeah, tough times for him.
Yeah, just nightmares, just waking up, invert the cars. No.
Bro, that was pretty funny. He's like, wait, is he like he's like, what are you guys doing though?
Cuz George was like, I know how many laps are left. Is he real?
Yeah,
I can't even see that motherfucker up there.
yeah. He's like,
Is he
are you
really gonna
trying to
run him
like
down?
crowd? Yeah, man. That's it's yeah.
Well,
He's
we'll
definitely
definitely get to chat
he
about
brings
that
out the
more.
Schadenfreude in me, and that's the worst. But okay, so for some of these other profiles we've done the circuit, we've done various different angles, but here's just a good opportunity, Aaron. I know Max, he crashed lap one, so here's what I decided to do. The Dutch Grand Prix is, after all, especially at Zandvoort, it is Max's it is Max's home race after all. He races under the Belgian flag. So I thought it might be interesting to, take a look back into Max's career and see if we could learn something, cuz I'll be fair, I really only know about as far as like his modern career.
Okay.
He didn't start racing too long before I started watching. So I just, I basically just kind of took it as it comes. I've heard, all of your Max facts over the years, just accumulate them. So I was like, I've been okay on Max history, but I thought it'd be a nice opportunity to go back and learn a little bit about you know the legend Max Verstappen. So if you don't mind, I'd like to talk a little bit about at least his early career. I haven't gone like in depth into his Formula One career. I just wanted to talk a little bit about kind of um, like how he got to the F1 seat basically.
Sure. Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing, and I hope I hear some new tidbits that I haven't gleaned across all my time perusing the Max Verstappen blog pages.
I might even just from the first factoids that I bring you, I might just tell you something that you don't know. So I hope that happens. So Max Verstappen, born to Jos Verstappen and Sophie Kumpen. So Jos was a former Formula One driver, had his own varied successes in the sport, and his mother Sophie Kumpen had a successful karting career. Was racing for many years. She ended up having a career-ending injury where she wasn't able to race anymore, but she went went to school, and now she works as a social worker. So just racing is in the blood for Max on on both sides of the family, and I'm pretty sure even an uncle or two had some racing pedigree as well. So yeah, just in the family. Max starts karting at age 4 and then begins competing in championships at the age of 7. So from 2006 to 2009, Max won a handful of championships that he entered in Belgium. There's a whole bunch of like local categories, local races, championships, like little six race things here and there for youth karting. Pretty much every single one that he enters from '06 to '09, he wins, starts building network and connections. 2012 he raced, or 2010 to 2012 he raced on a bunch of different karting teams. He was competing against the likes of Charles Leclerc, Alexander Albon, Esteban Ocon. These are all drivers that are in his class. When I was watching the 2013 KZ final, watching the final round of that championship, it's funny because you can see George Russell. He's like P13 in the mix back there somewhere. So it's just interesting to see some of these names coming up. 2013. This is the record breaking year. This is where people could start to realize that the performances from Max weren't just like a kid winning championships. Like, this guy's blood was different than everybody else on the racetrack. So that year in 2013, he wins the KZ World Championship. So KZ is in reference to the gearbox that's used for the karting championships. So that year, he was racing in both KZ and KF. KZ and KF are the two premier gearbox racing categories at that level. Basically, that's to say you're in the Formula One of karting at this point. So 2013, he wins the KZ World Championship over Charles Leclerc, which is notable. He wins 3 other CIK FIA championships. These are high rated karting championships. And you understand he's entered into all of them like throughout the year. It's not like one, many of them overlapping, much travel going on. So he's putting together just a massive year, right? So the KZ championship, 3 other FIA rated championships, and then, like I said, KF, the other premier gearbox, P3 in that championship. And it's only, and this is where the Max Verstappen that we know starts to build. He gets DQ'd in the final race for like an illegal move on a Nichols Nielsen. He likely would have had the win in the KF World Championship too, except he was mad aggressive. The race was crazy. There were offs everywhere. Like, I don't really blame him. Like, he was getting hounded the whole time as well. So like, it, in my opinion, it was in the air, but it's also in Max, as we know.
Oh yeah.
2014, Max tested in various Formula Renault cars. This is the big leap. Many other drivers would have just stay in karting and you make small lateral shifts. He begins getting these Formula Renault tests to where he can enter into like the regional formulas, the Formula 4s, the Formula 3s. We end up finding out that doesn't even matter for this guy. Like, he just skips that whole part of the career basically. So a bunch of tests in Formula Renault cars where he's quicker than the people that have the paid seat, just multiple times. Multiple times he's setting faster laps than the paid drivers. So then after these 2014 tests, he drives for Van Amersfoort in FIA Formula 3. He's in the pipeline. He's in open air single seater racing now, and he's putting his foot down. He gets 10 wins over the course of the year, sets a few other interesting records, places third with the most wins on the year, by the way. I don't know
That's
how that
wild.
happens. Yeah, I don't know how you get third in that regard. He did have a bunch of, if I remember correctly, if I remember that year correctly, he had a bunch of DNFs. I think he had somewhere close to like 7 or 8 DNFs.
Oh
So he
wow.
was just like missing other just like quality points in between there. It's
Mhm.
basically, if he wasn't winning, he was like crashing out or having some type of difficulty. So I think that's how you end up third in that regard. But like, yeah, wild for that to happen. And then 2015, the Australian Grand Prix, Max's first race. in Formula One. Previous to this, he's testing for Toro Rosso. He's being fit up for the Toro Rosso seat, which is now the Racing Bulls that kind of sister team has been around for a long time. But Max, in that Toro Rosso 2015 Australian Grand Prix was the first F1 race for him. At the time, becomes the youngest Formula One driver by a bit. Ends up then 2018 moves up to the Red Bull seat, and then it's history. He gets his first win in Red Bull when he moves up, and it's just lights out from there on out. One of my favorite Max facts, just impacts of him on Formula One in his career. And it's not like, other people getting better around him. Like, no. These are things that were written into the ledgers because he exists and because of the new and interesting ways you could say that he decided to go racing. So my favorite 2016 rule change, moving under braking rule gets instituted because multiple drivers were complaining about his like aggressive defense that he would use in corners. So the all the radio messages that you hear in modern Formula One, like, hey, like, yada, yada, that's thank you, Max Verstappen, for all of that. And basically, you can thank Kimi Räikkönen. I think he was one of the primary guys who voiced his concerns early on. And then my favorite of the Max rules that had to be written in, the race restart hounding rule, where you can no longer just pull up beside somebody and call that like I'm behind them,
Like my
you
nose isn't
know?
in front of their nose.
Right, just classic. So that's my favorite thing about Max is he drove in such a way where like rules had to be written around him to rein it in. He found the loopholes, he found the edges, and he would just try and race around them to the best that he could. To the degree that the sport is like shifting around him, and I just think that's very exciting to be able to watch a driver like that actively in the sport, not just somebody we get to learn about in the history books, but we get to watch this guy multiple weekends throughout the year. I was trying to come up with a succinct way to say that, but yeah, I found it awesome to learn about his karting career and kind of where he's come from. I didn't realize that it was basically just so stark from the get-go, and obviously in there, like we talked about, there's no Formula 2 for him, there's no Formula 4 for him. He tested in some of those, but he was just skipping full years, full grades, basically, on his way into Formula One. And yet, it didn't feel that long from the competitions against Charles Leclerc, to 2015. So yeah, he has just had a barnstorming career.
Yeah, it's he was always just a little monster to everyone else on the track around him. It's it carried through into his Formula One years. But he does. I think whether you look at him as like if whether people call him the GOAT at the end of his career, whether people call him like you can visibly see the impact he's had on the sport, and in my mind that just puts him kind of on that Mount Rushmore up there with a lot of these other greats, just because he has had that impact on the sport along with the success he's had. But I have actually gone back and watched watched that 2013 KZ championship and everything. I've gone through and seen some of the karting stuff. I was there was no video footage of Yost leaving him at the gas station or anything like that. No CCTV footage from when he like lost a race and his dad made him walk home from a gas station, or
Go
anything
Dev.
crazy, but he he made it through, and is the Max we know today. So yeah, that's a fun deep dive because he is had a very interesting career kind of throughout his whole life basically. So
Okay, so what I'm hearing is I was able to tell you nothing new, nothing that you didn't already know. to
I
like
I
to
didn't
some
know
extent.
as much of the differentiation of the series or like some of the karting, the other like FIA karting series that he was going through a tear on all at the same time. So yeah, little bits and pieces. Um,
Okay, all right. So some details, we learned something, not
eh,
bad. But yeah, I thought it was fascinating to learn more about him. That was great.
yeah, I appreciate it, and I enjoy getting to share that with you and just the knowledge about Max and everything because I do think he is a really unique driver to learn about and to get to watch drive week in and week out like you said with the calendar up here now through 2030. So we'll have at least a few more years of Max in Formula One. We can
Well,
hope.
and that's one of the crazy things. Like that's one of his records is most wins in a season. It's 19. It's like that's like crazy as a statistic. 19 wins in a season. That's, congratulations. But it's also, damn. There's 19 or more races in a year. Like that's a lot. Especially,
Yeah.
when you learn, the FIA World Championship used to be eight, like it used to be 7, 8, 9 races, something like this. So yeah, we've
Yeah.
really increased the amount of in-season races. But I mean, it's such a treat. You get to see these guys go at it more often. It's crazy, and that's just one of Max's many records, obviously.
Yeah, he's definitely done some good work on the record books, but we'll shift over and start talking about the Dutch Grand Prix weekend that we had here. But before we do, I just want to remind you if you're listening along, if you've enjoyed some of Justin's Max Facts, if you've enjoyed mine over time and you haven't subscribed, don't forget to subscribe, hit the little bell so you know when we put stuff out. Justin, when do we put out new content?
After every single Formula One event, like clockwork.
Awesome. So yeah, keep an eye out for future podcasts after races. We really appreciate you guys listening. But we'll hop into the feeder series segment here with the Formula One Academy. We had the reverse grid race, of course, and then the feature race. So Justin, why don't you take us here into the F1 Academy?
Yeah, so after coming off of it was a pretty exciting qualifying session for Formula One Academy, with Polmovsky setting a much quicker time than everybody else. I think it was either like 9 tenths or like
Just about, yeah, 8 to 9
or just
tenths.
about a second. Okay, very nice. So yeah, well clear from the lead. So I was really looking forward to her races as well, both from that P10 position going starting in the first race, and then she'd have the pole position in the second race. Unfortunately, in that reverse grid race, the first race that we have on the weekend, she stalls out. As I understood it as the broadcast went on, it sounded like she damaged her like clutch or the gearbox. So I think she did some damage to her car. She wasn't able to get off the line. Ends up unfortunately kind of squandering that pole position. Isn't able to get any points in that race. So that was kind of unfortunate in the first race. However, the younger driver Granada ends up crashing just a little bit later. So Palmowski is able to get off the line and at least catch back up to the other racers and at least put herself back in the fight, so she wasn't like totally gone. So I thought that was fine. Granada ends up being safe. But yeah, just that start of the race segment could have been much worse from Polmovsky. At least she was given a chance to fight back at the cost of Granada going into the wall on a really, I guess it was like an aggressive move, caught a bit of oversteer, slid up into the wall.
Yeah, it looked like she maybe as she was braking, the tires caught like the lip at the top of
Mm.
the little banked curve, and that I felt like that's what redirected her tires to go that way. It was reminded me of a couple of the Formula One crashes that we've had throughout this year where drivers are supposed to be going one way and the car just takes off on them the other way. I think Max has had one, maybe Hulk has had a similar one, but yeah, I think she might have just caught the lip of the bank there. But we end up having a couple of safety cars throughout this reverse grid race. Peyton Westcott, the Mercedes driver who was on pole for the reverse grid, um, drove phenomenally. Her restarts were really, really strong, kind of leaving nothing to chance. No risk of being overtaken there as she was going through. So really impressive drive from her to not only go and maintain that lead off the start, but also be able to maintain through those safety car restarts as well. I was pretty impressed by her drive.
Yeah, I definitely agree. As it is often hard in these races to maintain that pole position, throughout the race. So yeah, solid defense from her against Alba Larson as well. And she's somebody that I really wanted to talk about because I thought she had the best other than the pole sitter. I thought she had the best reverse grid race out of anybody. Alba Larson was just chopping through the field. She had to get done many different overtakes as well on her way up to that podium. So yeah, if there's a driver of the day, Alba Larson, the Ferrari supporter driver for me, I thought she had a killer reverse grid race, and she was just making all the right moves around this circuit.
Yeah, and overall, just the best weekend outside of the points. Like she had the strongest weekend, I think, in general, with
Mm.
P2 in the reverse grid race, but also in the feature race. She starts P9 in the reverse grid race, being second on the second in qualifying, and or I think it was P8 with the number of drivers. But either way, like making her way from there, middle of the pack, up to P2 in the reverse grid is a really strong drive. And then similarly, she in the feature race was really piling the pressure onto Palmowski throughout the early stages and even at the finish line, Palmowski was only like 1.5 seconds ahead of her. So just uh, kind of constantly keeping the pressure on, making sure she's there for any mistakes that could potentially come her way. Unfortunately, didn't work out other than the P2 for the race, but yeah, a very very strong weekend, and she's had some struggles throughout the year so far. So seeing her put together a really nice weekend was great to see for her because I think she's a very strong young driver.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. That was the highlight of the feature race for me. Just getting to see her and Alicia Palmofsky battling throughout. Because, like you said, it was a P1 P2 start for them. So Alba Larson was just on the hunt almost the whole time for Alicia Palmofsky. So that kind of cat and mouse throughout that whole feature race, I found to be really exciting. The other driver that I had my eye on over the weekend was last name Felbermeyer. Her first
Hmm.
name is escaping me.
Emma.
She had Emma Felbermeyer. Thank you. She had contact with Robertson in the reverse grid race, took a 5 second penalty, and then was able to scoop up some points, I believe, in the feature race as well. So solid drive, solid weekend for her. A bit aggressive on the overtakes as she was kind of like forcing drivers a bit wider, making a bit of contact. And overall, so here's what I think it is. And you've talked about this in regards to used to be pretty critical of Lando Norris for it, where like he wouldn't set up his overtakes well. He would basically just like go for it, like the first opportunity. He wouldn't, you can take like a lap or two, set it up, close the gap, and then just like make it really easy. That's kind of how it felt felt Emma Felbermeyer was racing. It felt like she was just taking opportunities when they were there, even if she would have had time to set up some of her moves. Like I said, she was forcing drivers wide, kind of cutting them off on the inside. So maybe need a little bit improved awareness for Emma Felbermeyer. But overall, I did like what I was seeing. You know, very Kamara esque with the aggression, but you just gotta keep your wheels out of their wheel wells, and you know you won't get your penalties.
Yeah, and she's had a very strong season as well. Like she's Felbermeyer's one of the other really good drivers on the grid here. And I think at this age, my criticism of Lando, I think, was it's tough because I think I looking at him as a Formula One driver, he's already gone through these lower tiers of open wheel racing and everything. Where this is for a lot of these drivers their first kind of opportunity in this setup. So I do expect them to have some of those growing pains and things like that. There's always the conversation of like the Senna approach of if you are you really a racing driver if you see a gap and don't go for it kind of thing. Where in my mind it's like you can see a gap, but you have to know that you can actually make it there in
Sure.
time, or set yourself up for when that gap opens up down the road. And it's a little tough in these shorter races as well because I'm sure the drivers feel like they have to kind of make
Yeah.
progress pretty quickly there. So I'll definitely not come down quite as hard on Felbermeyer with that, but she's definitely a strong driver, and I think the aggression again. It's we talked about it with Ugachukwu the other week. That that aggression or that just willingness to go for it and everything is something that you can't teach as well.
Mm,
So where you can teach the restraint and the strategy of picking your spot to make that pass a bit more than you can teach a timid driver to be a bit more have a bit more bravado, I guess.
sure. Yeah, and I guess just to like develop that thought just a little bit more. Yeah, I she was going and to talk specifically about the Zambor races when she was going for the overtakes, she was going for them in the like the right hand left handers like the short little chicanes that have the like slight elevation change to them. So it was also like where she was picking the overtake
Mm.
opportunity. It's like I don't think you're supposed to try to overtake there. I think there's like other corners that you do it at. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that can be it can be tough when you're sitting there just itching to get by and everything, but yeah, there's definitely some spots that are better than others, especially here at Zandvoort. um I will say it is a little bit tough for them as well, just with the not having DRS. You don't quite get the same sort of slipstream on that main straight into turn
Sure.
one as you would in other series, but nonetheless, really fun F1 Academy weekend, and it was good to see them all back out on circuit. And we still have a couple of race weekends ahead of us for the F1 Academy grid.
Yep, and then two races per, and I don't know if there's
We
any
get
three race
three.
weekends. Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. Isn't Abu Dhabi the three race weekend?
So the last two races, and I don't know if this has changed due to the scheduling concerns with the F1, but right now Austin will have a three race weekend, and then Las
Okay.
Vegas will be the finale.
Oh,
I think it might
okay,
have shifted
right.
because of all of the uncertainty with the F1 calendar.
Okay, gotcha. But there'll be two US.
Yeah.
rounds with 3 events each.
3 in Austin, 2 in Vegas. So
Oh,
five
okay, okay,
five
gotcha.
races left technically.
I understand completely now. That's great.
Yeah, so we've got a good bit of racing still in the F1 Academy here to go. But any final notes here on the F1 Academy weekend?
No, I don't think so. Pretty straightforward races overall. Definitely enjoyed what I saw in the races. There's like some silly stuff in the qualifying as well. But that's just like to your point of younger racers. They're locking in all of these like different procedures and how to go about being on track. But yeah, just a solid Formula One Academy weekend. I was happy to see the Alba Larson and Polmowski battle. That was genuinely really fun in the feature race.
Yeah, so the reverse grid podium was Peyton Westcott for Mercedes, Alba Larson for Ferrari, and then Nina Gademan for Alpine, or the teams that sponsor them. And then for the feature race, we had Alicia Palmowski, P1, Alba Larson again in P2, and Nina Gademan again in P3. So some really strong weekends from Larson and Gateman as well. But we'll hop over to the Dutch Grand Prix here for the Formula One grid. And Justin, let's go ahead and hop into the winners and losers. And who did you have here off the top?
So my driver winner, quite obviously, I'm picking Lando Norris. Not only was he the race winner, but I think he performed very well over the course of the weekend. Performed well in comparison to his teammate as well. So I just thought it was a standout from Lando Norris, and I can give you some of the details. The qualifying performance into the race I thought was honestly like pretty stunning based on what I saw in the sprint and then in the it was basically in the sprint qualifying session and then the sprint. I wasn't sure the McLaren was going to be able to contest for a podium, let alone a win, and neither did he. I was taking a little bit of signaling from their interviews as well. But in the race, after locking down the pole position in the Saturday qualifying session, which that that Q3 in the main event qualifying session. Another great Saturday event. Honestly, I thought that was really fun. He's going, lap for lap with the Mercedes and the Ferraris, able to stay consistently at the top of those timing tables, and then take that pole position, convert that into a victory. Yeah, he wasn't race leader for the entirety of the race. However, team brings in a really nice strategy for him. He does have to make the overtake on track, and it was electric. By the way, it was not free by any stretch of the imagination. So it has to get a really nice overtake done on Kimi Antonelli. I think the one on Lewis Hamilton was just a bit of a cherry on top. I'm pretty sure that guy was going to pit anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But he still does it, and it's like pretty cool. I think it puts him further down the road away from Kimi Antonelli, like sooner, basically that kind of thing. So just overall, I thought Lando was awesome on the weekend. He's able to improve as he goes. Like I said, wasn't looking that strong. Ends up doing battle in the qualifying session and then delivers on Sunday. So man, it was a really strong weekend for Lando Norris. And yeah, top step of the podium is deserving of the winners here.
Yeah, I would say so. Lando had a phenomenal weekend. I love that he's gotten the back to back wins and is really, now that McLaren have brought some upgrades to the car and everything. I think it's cool that as the reigning world champion, he's getting the opportunity to still compete. We kind of weren't sure how this season was gonna go, if it was gonna be like 2023, just with Mercedes winning 20 out of the the races or whatever. But we've ended up with a fun competitive season, and Lando really showed his stuff this weekend. His qualifying performances have been really strong throughout the year. And that was the same here in Zandvoort. And then, yeah, really strong drive, and those overtakes in the Grand Prix were, um, I they were fun. Like that is, it's not a easy circuit to make any overtakes anyway. And he was kind of chasing them down for a bit before he got that opportunity. So a fun drive for Lando there, and I can completely see why he was your winner for this week. Um, but my first winner here, I went with Liam Lawson. I felt like he was really kind of put in a tough position. He's going back up to the team that had dropped him to the sister team not very long ago, just a year in the past. He's learning a new car that, even though he's driven these cars and that understands the deployment and everything, jumping into a new car at a pretty tough circuit with 1 hour of practice session, and then the kind of rainy and slippery different weather that we've had throughout the weekend. I wouldn't have faulted him if he had really struggled, but at the end of the day, he goes, has a little bit of a tougher time in the sprint race getting up to speed. But for the Grand Prix, he qualifies right behind Max. He ends up finishing in that P7 position, which is, in my opinion, exactly where the Red Bull car was this weekend. I don't think that the Red Bull car uh, was competitive with the McLarens, the Ferraris, the Mercedes. Um, if Max had been in there, maybe he shakes it up and picks off a couple of those guys here or there, or they get a good strategy for him or something. But I think Liam did everything that the team could have asked for. And so that's why I have him as one of my winners here on the week.
Yeah, I think that's totally reasonable. The one maybe like counterpoint that I would offer is I'm just curious how much of a stretch that Red Bull is from the Racing Bulls. I wonder if there is some implicit familiarity there. That's all I would wonder.
There might be a little bit. I assume using the same power supply, there's probably some similarities with like deployment and things like that. But overall, I think the car is still, it sounds from both Isak and Max's conversations throughout the season like it's a still pretty tough car to drive,
Okay.
where I feel like the Racing Bulls car has been kind of that best of the rest, but I haven't heard them say much negative about that car, at least in driving style. So, but I wouldn't be surprised if there are some similarities and crossover there with the engines and everything. Um, so yeah, maybe not as tough as say our boy Yuki coming in for the weekend.
Sure. Yeah, dude, and he must have just been having a whale of a time. And you said it like on a worst possible weekend for it. Not saying Zandvoort, but a sprint weekend at that, where you just have that 1 hour of the free prac time. I mean, he must have been doing a significant amount of homework to bring him at like as close to up to speed as possible, so he could just hit the ground running when they were hopping in the car, Liam and Yuki Tsunoda as well. So yeah, I think that's a really solid shout for Liam Lawson there as winner. I'm curious, did you have a second winner for your race weekend?
I did not as big of one, but Pierre Gasly, I just wanted to give him a little shout out after the Alpine was so strong early in the season. He was picking up points, looking good. They didn't bring upgrades or keep up with that development as much as some of the other teams and fell back. Um, as soon as they bring this upgrade package to his car, and this no knock to Colapinto because he doesn't have the upgrades for this weekend, but Pierre gets those upgrades. He ends up snagging a point in both the sprint and the Grand Prix. And so I wanted to give him a little shout for that drive because that's definitely it's just good to see the consistency there from him. It really seems like it was just the car not being quite up to competitive level to fight for points, because as soon as they brought those upgrades, he's right back where he was at the start of the season.
Yeah, definitely. And it's actually on that angle. I picked Franco Colapinto as one of my losers on the weekend because you could see such a stark difference in the
Yeah.
performance that their packages were able to offer. Just a couple of details on the Alpine upgrade package. So yeah, like we said, this should be on Colapinto's car for the Monza
Mm.
race. Just wasn't possible here. So they've gone with, and if you look at the McLaren end plate, it's similar. It has these like upward wave elements on the outside of the end plate, and the believed kind of purpose there is to just generate a little bit of extra downforce on the rear wing elements. So they
Mm.
have a similar build that the McLaren has. I think Alpine only has one or two scoops. The McLaren this week had a bunch of scoops on the outside. But then what's really interesting for the Alpine is if you took a look at the back of their car, they have added in and are working on, because the parts are still like, they almost look like they're like still in prototype status. Many parts that you see on a Formula One car, they have like nice finished edges and everything's like all very nicely manufactured. These images were like really roughed in. So Alpine is prototyping a new and quite complex looking rear support structure for
Mm.
their like diffuser, their exhaust system, and it seems like all of those elements and systems are being like brought all like together in some way. But mainly the detail that I wanted to share is like how much in the prototype stage it really looks like these are not finished elements at all. So I just wanted to offer a little bit of color there on the Alpine package because yeah, that's why I had Colapinto as a loser. But yeah, the package really working for Gasly, as you can see, because yeah, it puts him right back to where, like we said, we kind of expect that car to be. The winner that I had, the second winner that I had on the weekend, I picked Mercedes. Just
Mm.
the double podium, the constant fighting that they were able to do. They were the team to beat for most of the weekend, having strength in the qualifying sessions, having strength in the long runs as well. We even saw like kind of quite early on in the weekend. If you were watching at the end of the free practice session for about the last like 10 minutes or so, teams were doing some quali simulations at the end of that. Russell and Antonelli looked really strong even then early on Friday. So they were looking really strong and just performed well over the course of the weekend, ending Sunday double podium with a heads up strategy call. It is not the papaya rules that we're used to. They just said, "Hey, we're reversing the cars and we're not going to say anything when you ask us questions. This is just how things are running." So I thought Mercedes put together a really solid race weekend, and this is the type of weekend that like yeah, I think it just 26 is all about for them, where this is, let me rephrase that. This is just what you expect out of Mercedes in the 26 season, just basically utter dominance. And the fact that Lando Norris won, it's like it's kind of a hiccup, but they raked in so many points.
Yeah, and I do the past two races here with Lando getting the wins, from all accounts across the broadcast and from the drivers, it sounds like these are probably the best two circuits for the current McLaren car.
Yeah.
When we go to Monza, a lot of that is going to be engine power and the the pairing and working of that with the hybrid system and everything and the battery power. So whether McLaren has got that part down quite as well as Mercedes has shown from the start of the year is a whole nother thing. But yeah, Mercedes had a strong weekend, and Justin, I will say I don't know if this is like you might not have thought it was papaya rules. It was Toto was real sneaky about it here. But by reversing the cars in the Grand Prix, it made sure that both drivers landed on 23 points for the weekend. So it is roundabout big brain 4D chess papaya rules from Toto.
It's even Steven.
Even Steven. But yeah, they had a strong weekend. George looked kind of back to his normal self from the beginning of the year, the confidence. Yeah, maybe his engagement over the summer break just took a weight off of his shoulders, brought that car back down to the minimum weight and everything, and he's good to go.
He did say that to his engineer. I was like, "You're so corny, mate. You're so corny."
In the I don't know if you saw the press conference, but they asked George about that and everything, and said, oh, maybe it'll bring you a couple tenths of pace on the weekend. And he goes, if that'll he said even Lando will get engaged if it brings him a couple tenths.
It's
Which
funny.
I thought was that was a good laugh, and one of the better jokes that I've heard George throw out there. So
Yeah, that's fair. I didn't know he was capable of comedy. I didn't know he had a comedy feature. That's pretty neat.
he's been practicing. So
Yeah.
but for my loser first loser here this weekend, I had Arvid Lindblad. I felt like he was kind of just had a tougher weekend. Again, sprint weekend. This is a circuit that you don't drive in the lower formulas. So this is his first opportunity to drive here at Zandvoort. You don't get a lot of practice time. And so there's going to be some of those growing pains for a rookie. But I really felt like he kind of got unnecessarily knocked down a peg in the Grand Prix where he was running in a pretty good spot with the drive-through penalty from Max's from the yellow flag infringement during Max's crash. And I listened to the post race broadcast, the post race show, and they brought up a pretty good point that I felt was kind of a reasonable point in this conversation about the crash.
Who
When
made the point, and I'll tell you if it's reasonable or not.
um I believe it was Julian Palmer.
Okay, pass.
But he said basically that um when you're in a situation where everyone's kind of taking evading action and everything to like dodge out of a crashing car and all this debris and everything, then you should kind of give a little bit more leniency to the drivers because Arvid, I guess, passed another driver under the double yellow flag from Max's crash, like just while everyone's kind of dodging around, and that's what his drive-through penalty was, which also is a pretty significant penalty compared to even like a 5 second or a 10 second.
You
I
lose a lot of
understand
time.
with the rule book and everything, but especially after you have a standing restart, so everyone's compacted together, you just get tossed to the back of the grid. There's really no saving yourself from that. So a tough spot for him to be in. I mean, we even saw driver like Nico Hulkenberg barely dodging Bortoletto, who had spun out around that same instant. And all. And so there was a lot of chaos going on, and to try and keep everything safe and a level head, like I just felt like that was a little bit harsh. A tougher weekend for Arvid. Um, but again, he's still had a pretty strong season thus far, so I think it'll just be a little blip here on the radar for him.
Yeah, that's really fair, but a good point nonetheless. That is really interesting. Where under under duress, is there a way to look at those events a bit differently where you can like offer some leniency to the driver? That's a really interesting question, and I imagine there are a few places where something like that maybe could be applied. But yeah, it seems like overall for the FIA they opt for these like pretty black and white type scenarios, and then just decide whether or not they're going to apply them.
Yeah, and I think it's just a tough spot, especially you get the red flag. They decided to revert the grid order back to
Back to
whatever it
lap
had
one.
been. And then, like, even with that, so the pass at that point doesn't matter at all. It was they rearranged the order anyway. So in that kind of situation, it doesn't feel like he gained an advantage. And I don't know if you can say he was like driving unsafely when you're just kind of in that chaos. Max's one tire is bouncing down the circuit and there's carbon fiber all over the place. So um yeah, not to get too into the weeds, but yeah, tough spot for Arvid to be in, and I don't really feel like there was too much else he could have done there. And so you had Colapinto for one of your losers. Did you have another loser here on the weekend?
Yeah, I just thought it was brutal to see Haas have the double DNF on Sunday. They struggled overall throughout the weekend as well. You could see them just really struggling to get a hold of the circuit. It felt like they were struggling on their long runs. That's seemed to be what they were working on in their free practice session, and times weren't great. They were having difficulties, and then that just kind of persisted throughout the weekend. Ends then on Sunday, double DNF, no like barely any running at all for them. So yeah, big unfortunate for Haas. So I just wanted to make a note of that, and yeah, it's just a bad time for the team in that regard.
Yeah, they've definitely had a tough season so far. They haven't been able to bring as much development or pace to the car as you would hope. And yeah, not being able to get either driver across the line is tough when you're already kind of in need of as much data as possible to try and help your progress along there. Um, for my second loser, I'll just breeze through this, but I had Red Bull, primarily the main Red Bull drivers, Liam Lawson being kind of the saving grace there. But just super unfortunate for Hajar to injure himself training and to be out for the race weekend, and then for Max to crash out on the slippery surface there coming through just so early on in the race. Definitely not what you're looking for, and especially at last race for the foreseeable future at Zandvoort, Max's home race. Just kind of a bummer of a weekend, and not what Red Bull was looking for to kick off the second half of the season here after the summer break.
I think that's totally fair. Yeah, on the Zandvoort note, I really hope it's a racetrack that can get like a rotating contract. I hope we see it at least every few years, or for a couple year runs, or however they're gonna do it. I really love this. I really love this circuit. I think it helps that Lando's won here twice and Oscar's won here once. I think I have that like team fondness in my heart for it, but yeah, I think it's a circuit we should come back to. In that regard, yeah, I think Red Bull is a fine pick here. Roster getting shifted around, drivers crashing, not being available. the Yuki Tsunoda angle is, we can bring that in here. I thought for having 1 hour of free practice, he leveled up over the weekend pretty
Mhm.
well. I mean, I bet there were people who could have just easily said, "There's no way he gets out of the Q1s in either qualifying sessions," and he's just at the back of the grid. He basically just like clocks in for the weekend and then clocks out. He did way better than that.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, he made it out of Q1 in both qualifying sessions, so kind of keeping up to some extent with his counterpart there with Lindblad. Um, and not only just coming in having the short week, but like he was, I think he said on a beach in Greece and gets the call like, "Hey, you gotta fly to the UK to come start testing. You're gonna be driving this weekend potentially." So short, I think less than a week of notice to go. I will say this circuit itself may have been a blessing in disguise a little bit for him, where um, the car engine regulation things didn't really play as massive a part with the harvesting and using the battery power at certain parts quite as much here. But nonetheless, entirely new cars, totally different aero packages. You have very different downforce from the floors in this regulation of cars than he had in his most recent stint in Formula One. So I really feel like he grabbed the racing bull by the horns and put on a pretty good show.
Nice.
And it just came to me on the spot. I'm always proud of myself when I don't prepare those, but yeah, I felt like Yugi. I think this puts him in a decent position both to show his stuff, looking at whether it's an IndyCar drive. I know he's been mentioned here and there in the conversation with Haas for potentially coming in instead of Esteban Ocon, depending how that shakes out throughout the rest of the calendar. So if this is his one opportunity to go out and say, "Hey, I can still do this. Look how this went and everything." I think he definitely gave himself a solid commendation for a spot somewhere in 2027. So just looking forward to seeing more Yuki out on circuits.
Sure. No, I would totally agree with that. Yeah, that's a fine point. Yeah, that was kind of the angle that I had for the practice session. There wasn't really anything else much going on. That was the one, kind of bit that I wanted to bring in was the Sonoda just trying to learn very quickly. It seemed like there were some struggles for some of the drivers in the practice sessions, but yeah, I think that was like the main topic of conversations. The sprint quali was pretty exciting. The Ferraris and the McLarens battling at the top, I thought was really fun. Interestingly, in SQ3, dude, top four cars separated by like a tenth of a second.
Yeah.
That's just yeah, it's just so close between them in the one lap pace.
And that's where I know Oscar didn't have as good of a weekend as Lando on paper, but I felt like Oscar still had a decently strong weekend, both qualifying performances. I mean, he's 600ths of a second off of Lando in the sprint quali. He's like 10th and a half off in the Grand Prix qualifying. So there's really like he is right there in the mix, but both qualifying sessions were just extremely tight with the spread, like from even Liam Lawson up in P8 for Grand Prix qualifying. He's half a second behind Lando. Like, so that whole top eight is split by 5/10 of a second. Like, that's a
Hmm.
pretty tight grid here. And so with Oscar, like it just things didn't quite go his way like they would have needed to. He had the 5.5 second pit stop in the Grand Prix that dropped him back behind Lewis, I believe it was, and then he kind of just got stuck for a bit in Lewis's wheel tracks and just couldn't make headway as well as you would have hoped. Um, but nonetheless, I felt like Oscar still had a decently strong weekend. The highlight of Lando being up at the front definitely took the spotlight.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, obviously, I'd agree with you. He was in the top five all weekend, especially in the one lap pace. Him and Lando, like you were alluding to, very close on lap time. So yeah, I don't think you take anything away from Oscar Piastri. Clearly, the upgrades that McLaren are working on have brought good pace to both cars, which is really encouraging. There's a bunch of various bodywork changes that they brought. They have some changes to the floor, and like we were talking about, to their rear wing package as well. I'm pretty sure McLaren brought the flip up wing this weekend
I
that
think so.
Ferrari pioneered, and then Red Bull was testing. I'm pretty sure McLaren has their version of the flip up rear wing live, adding to their pace and helping them out. So again, McLaren working with the upgrades that they brought really well and able to kind of integrate them into the package, not really missing a step. But yeah, I feel like those are all well observed points there for Oscar Piastri, not too far off the mark off of his teammates. So yeah, that's pretty solid. And yeah, I think that was one of the highlights of the qualifying sessions that you could talk about. Otherwise, I felt like the Ferraris were pretty close to each other. I felt like the Mercedes were pretty close to each other, and those top six drivers, they were just trading times. It was basically whoever was setting, because Zandvoort ramps up in the qualifying session as well. So it was basically whoever was able to set the time last until you get to Saturday qualifying. And that Q3 run two, epic,
Yeah.
absolutely epic, where it's like 5 minutes to rain, everybody's trying to get out, set the lap time, because it's going to be on the margins where we're on slick tires, but the track is going to be getting wet. So that was all about commitment. How much grip do you have versus how much are you going to go for it? Lando able to top Kimi Antonelli's time, which at that point it looks super fast as well. Russell trading times in there as to steal off of Kimi Antonelli, puts himself P2, contesting Lando Norris. Man, that second run of laps, that was very exciting.
Yeah, and it's very interesting seeing them like doing that versus kind of to an arbitrary time. Like no one was running really or planning to run at that point all the way up until the clocks hit zero and try and get that last lap like started just before the end of the session. They were hustling to get
Oh,
out
right. The
there
session
and
ended
and
like
beat,
3 minutes early or
yeah,
whatever.
just to beat the rain and everything. So yeah, it kind of made it exciting because you just don't know when that last uh purple lap is gonna come in and everything
Mm-hmm.
versus just waiting once the clock has hit zero and everything. There's still opportunities potentially, but um I did want to ask you. So looking still before we shift off of McLaren, I just wanted to get your brief kind of thoughts on the championship fight. Does Lando? Do you feel like Lando has a shot to still defend his title? It's still obviously a pretty significant margin to Kimmy. I think it's I don't know, it's like 83 points or something like that behind. And so I know until last year, no one would have probably thrown out this question of being massively behind and making a comeback. But what do you feel about Lando's chances here in the championship fight?
Yeah, why not? You know, I'm not like gunning for it. You know, I'm not saying like, oh man, like like we can do this, but
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, why not? Like I don't think he's racing badly. McLaren
no,
is clearly either at some points leading the development race or is neck and neck in the development race with the other top teams, i.e., the Mercedes and the Ferraris. There's a competitiveness to that whole outfit that has carried over from 25 into this new 26 regulation year. Yes, they've been late bloomers, you could say, into this year. However, back-to-back wins is interesting to, start leaning your hat on, that kind of thing. And like you said, he has won a championship before. So it's not like you're just like pulling a guppy and saying my man can do it because he's won a race or two. It's like, well, no, he's won a race or more and won a championship against the best. So I think if you started going on Kalshi now and locking in Lando Norris, I wouldn't call you crazy. I'm not doing it, but I wouldn't call you crazy.
that's a fair point. Pretty even keeled opinion on it. I'm in the same boat. I think um the recency bias of the 100-point deficit that Max almost overcame to come back, or I guess did technically overcome, to Piastri, who was leading at the time that Max was 100 points back. Um but yeah, I think that makes it seem more feasible than in reality. There's never been a comeback quite that big. So I think in the way Lando sounded like he's looking at it is just one race at a time. He's enjoying driving, and he is one of the, in my opinion, he's had one of the best seasons thus far. Just in terms of performance, I feel like he's had a really strong season. I mean, he's P4 in the championship, and has had some unfortunate things like not even starting in Australia, I think it was. So neither of the
Mm.
McLarens got out. So I think he's putting together a pretty solid year as reigning champ.
Yeah, for sure. And it's like, yeah, if he was able to like, yeah, whatever. I'll just skip the ifs and the whats. But yeah, it's like I'm definitely not going to count him out, and I definitely like watching him win. So yeah, give me more of that.
Yeah, sounds good. Um, but yeah, I guess we haven't talked too much about Ferrari this weekend. Hearing Lewis come over the radio during the Grand Prix with a bit of frustration, I think he probably post race was even a little more. I would imagine probably felt even a bit more frustrated because being so close to catching George up at the end of the Grand Prix when the team didn't allow him past Leclerc for quite some time early on in the race. I'm sure that is in the back of his mind as like that could have been a podium if the team made some more decisive decisions like we saw with Mercedes, where they said here's the law, and the boys followed it. And um it was kind of a tougher weekend for Lewis, even though the car had some pretty good pace.
Yeah, the joke that I made when we were getting the Ferrari confusion on the radio, the joke that I made was like, damn, like they're just like Ferrari's just trying to finish a race, but Lewis Hamilton's like he's fighting for a championship. The goals and expectations feel like they're not aligned in that regard. Lewis was looking for those like on the edge, audible, like he wanted to be like seeing the ones and zeros of the Matrix, and his engineers just over the radio like, well, Leclerc's pace is like we're doing fine, so just like he's relaxing on a beach, like
Yeah.
Sonoda is. So the intensity levels, I think, for the position that Lewis felt they were in was very different. Where it's like he saw them being able to win the race, and Ferrari was just okay, just scooping up some points. That was kind of the feeling that I had
Yeah.
listening to the. Obviously they're cherry picking. They
Of
pick and
course.
choose what gets fed, but like based on what we heard, it sounded like that's what was going on.
Yeah, and I mean, in the position he's in, he was P2 in the championship. Now he's technically P3, but tied with Russell in points for P2 in the
Hmm.
championship. Like, again, that early on decision making from Ferrari could have cost him those points. That's like a 6 point swing or whatever in Russell's favor. Um, by him picking up those 3 points that Lewis doesn't get. Like that
Right.
could become significant. That I mean, if it's P9 and P10 and you're squabbling over 1 point, okay, like I can kind of understand a little bit, but Lewis is in this championship fight, and I feel like not that they should put Leclerc to the wayside, but in those decisions they do need to be a little bit quicker and not necessarily favor Lewis, but like make the smart decision for the team and the drivers. Like you're you even have one point where Lewis almost dive bombs Charles like the lap before he ends up coming into pit,
Right.
and it's like if you want to avoid Lewis having to force his hand and everything, then you should kind of look at those decisions and figure out how you're going to handle those things, because you do have a guy in the championship fight. He's 30 points up on Leclerc. Not that that's any insurmountable thing, but like it's significant.
Yeah, it's significant, and I think it does begin to warrant that like driver one, driver two, we're gonna prioritize the guy that's currently in the best position to get close to the championship win. Like
Yeah.
that's how they have to factor.
And like
And
different strategies. They weren't really on the same tire strategy at that point either.
gotcha. Okay, and that was part of the conversation with the Antonelli Russell shift up as well, where Russell's on the hard tires, Antonelli was on the soft tires. So
Yeah.
yeah, you have to make those types of decisions. But yeah, Lewis Hamilton, he's trying to min max, like you were saying, every single point that's possible, and it didn't feel like the team was supportive in that.
Yeah, and that's so I can definitely understand his frustration. Um it was I feel like we haven't heard that from Lewis since they switched his race engineer, but even like looking at the Ferrari pit wall, they're asking him, "Oh, what do you think about the medium tire?" The medium tire that the only time he ran it was during Q2 of sprint qualifying. You already saw a full stint from Leclerc on the medium tire, and Lewis is so like, you have the data, and they're like, what do you think about this thing that you've never tried before? And Lewis is like, who's like, I don't know, Leclerc looked kind of slow on him. Like what? Like I don't know. You tell me. So yeah, it's and they need to feed him more information too. Like he was saying tires are good and he's a second slower on the lap than the front running guys at that point and everything. And there's no way he had that information to be able to be like, oh wait, I'm that much slower. I need to either push or like we need to get off these tires. So
Mm.
I think Ferrari definitely has some growth to do from the pit wall and everything if they're going to mount a championship fight here with Lewis and Leclerc. Even for the constructors fight, they're not quite out of it, but that lead is growing week to week. So they have to really maximize their opportunities.
Yeah, bro, like you're just a Ferrari team member. That's what you're saying. If they could mount a fight, Lewis Hamilton believes we are currently mounting the fight.
I've just seen so many times now
Like you get what
in
I'm saying, right?
yeah, it's like 80% of the years that I've watched F1, Ferrari's like right there, and they're like, "Oh, we might challenge you this time." Oh, never mind, we're
Sure.
good.
Sure. Well, I think Matteo Binotto was a bit reserved. I
Hmm.
don't think he's ever gonna be the guy that's giving you the Flavio Briatore angle, and then the team
Fred.
principal now, Fred Vasseur, dude, he's so cheeky. Like he likes giving you the answer where like he'll like give you like a smile and a nudge. You know, he's being real like coy and whatever.
I
So
need
these
him to be
guys
on
like
the team radio like Toto.
no, that's what I'm saying. You don't have the personalities to get
Yeah,
that type of kind of like aura, I guess.
very Italian mentality. Just yeah, we take the whole month of August off. You get like we shut down all the restaurants and shops for a few hours in the
Sure.
afternoon. Like very casual atmosphere.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that's currently working for Lewis. Like we had said, they'll likely have to get on some type of some type of agreeing grounds. Because yeah,
Yeah.
like you were saying, he's quite frustrated on those radio calls.
Yeah, and I haven't really. I think it's a combination of being in the championship fight and not feeling the urgency from the other side and everything. Um, but yeah, I guess were there any other team notes and things that you wanted to touch on here as we're going through?
Um, Not necessarily. I think we hit on a bunch of the like Grand Prix angles, some of the talking points. The one thing that I didn't mention, this was kind of involved in the Max crash, was the onboard from Hulkenberg,
Yeah.
where I guess it's like Bortoletto spinning behind Max
Mm.
that Hulkenberg was reacting to, but it was all all kind of in the same moment. The onboard from Hulkenberg going into Bortoletto's tire smoke is, dude, that is horrifying. And just like, yep, just by the grace of God, he gets on by, and yep, that's just what happened.
Yeah, just
Crazy.
waiting till the absolute last second to decide which way to go. Just like because you want to have as much information as you can, but that
Hmm.
was a thick cloud of smoke. Very fortunate there. I think the only other note I had was another little quick Fernando Alonso shout out. Crazy one stop post the red flag strategy for Aston Martin, picking up the P9, which was not really as much due to their upgrades as much as that strategy that they put
Mm.
together and um, Alonso's just tire whispering. So a solid couple of points there for him for Aston Martin.
Yeah, and it just seems like overall their like early season car package woes seem to be behind them. They are just like running well now, like kind of hiccupless overall. I think they are beginning to look like the team that they want to be in the year. That kind of angle, and yeah, props to Alonso for getting some points. Aston Martin was able to bring a few upgrades to the track this weekend as well. I think they brought some like stabilizing elements and some bracing elements specifically for their rear suspension. So just some ever more changes being added to the Aston Martin car as they bring that into a more drivable state.
Yeah, and their engine upgrade came this week as well. So we'll see how much of an impact that has. Probably a bit better at Monza, but it definitely didn't seem to hurt them too much here.
No, definitely not at all. But yeah, those were kind of the bigger points that I had. Just from like the race angle, we didn't talk about this a whole lot. Maybe just got wrapped in the like Lando Norris conversation. Was the hunt at the end of the race in the second stint? That
Mm.
was awesome. I think that was so much fun to watch. Just from a racing angle, no matter who it is, the current, or what would you say, the virtual race leader, because it was like Kimi Antonelli behind Lewis Hamilton,
Mm.
the like virtual race leader being hunted down. That just makes for some good entertainment at the end of the race. So I thought that was really fun.
That's when I really miss the 3-digit timing on the timing screen. I hate seeing like just 1.0, 1.1, 1.0 where it's probably like 1.048 then 1.052 and it's like flipping an entire
Mm.
tenth just by rounding. So those I love sitting there watching like in this instance Lando chasing down the leaders there and just seeing that gap just tick down every new sector. It's a couple tenths closer and closer until he's right up on the back there. So yeah, very fun racing to watch when you get to see someone go on the hunt there.
I'm surprised that you were. I'm surprised that you were still watching the race by the end of it. There, I just imagine if Max crashes lap one, you just turn it off, go do something else.
So uh it panned out okay for me because a couple of buddies had invited me golfing yesterday. So I was like started watching, I'm getting ready, heading to golf and everything. I saw Max crash and and it went to red flag and I was just like, all right, I'm gonna pick this up in a little bit. So I ended up coming back. I avoided any spoilers, didn't go on Twitter or anywhere else until I got to watch through. But yeah, I did get to watch Lando's chase down there. Um but yeah, I think that generally wraps out the Grand Prix here for the Dutch Grand Prix. We had in the sprint race George Russell P1, Charles Leclerc P2, and then Lando Norris P3. And then in the Grand Prix we had Lando P1, Kimi Antonelli P2, and George Russell P3. So George picking up two podiums there as well as Lando.
Bringing in a whole bunch of points for his championship, contend. But yeah, nice amount of points there for the Mercedes team.
Yeah. So we'll head over. We've got the Italian Grand Prix at Monza coming up next. So we of course have the hot seat episode for the Italian Grand Prix here coming right at you.
And this one's gonna edge on the easier side. Previous Dutch Grand Prix hot seats have been pretty challenging, so I was able to find some that were not as difficult. The Italian Grand Prix, long historic race that's been on the calendar for a while. So yeah, we'll see how much Aaron knows about the Italian Grand Prix. Aaron, are you ready for the hot seat?
Yep, let's do it.
All right, so question number one. Who is the current race lap record holder for the Monza circuit with a 1 minute 20-second 9/10? Is it A, Lewis Hamilton, B, Max Verstappen, or C, Lando Norris?
I think that's C, Lando Norris.
You are correct. I
Ah,
believe he said it last year.
I
So
think so.
1 for 1 so far. Very nice. Question number two, bit of a gimme here. What is the nickname of the Monza circuit? Is it A, the Temple of Speed? Is it B, the Temple of Doom? Or is it C, the Temple of Plenty?
That would be A, the Temple of Speed.
All right, you nailed it. Couple of trick answers, but you know you navigated safely. And then question number three: how many Italian racing drivers have won the Monza Italian Grand Prix over the years? Is it A 6, B 11, or C 15?
Wow. That ooh. Times that an Italian driver has won or different Italian drivers?
How many Italian drivers have won? So I don't think we're counting like double wins. I think the same
Gotcha.
Italian could have won multiple times. Is the
I'll
count that I have.
I'll go so A was 6, B was 10 or 15.
A is 6, B 11, or C 15.
I'll go 11, but that's a shot in the dark here.
You are correct. It's B
Woo.
11. The most recent Italian to win the Italian Grand Prix is Ludovico Scarfiotti in 1966.
Holy moly.
Damn, you just nailed a 3 for 3 hot seat. Just ripped it off there like a band aid.
Yeah, coming in hot from the summer break. I was feeling it this week, so I hope you guys are right there along with me with a 3 for 3. Um, but that is the hot seat here for the Italian Grand Prix at Monza that we have coming up this coming weekend. It is this weekend,
Uh,
right? Or is it two
I
weekends?
don't think it's this weekend. I'm pretty sure it's 2 weekends. Yeah, I think
In two
it's
weekends.
September like 2nd through the 4th or whatever, like 4th through the
Yes.
6th or something.
So 1 week off, and then we'll have the Italian Grand Prix there at Monza. Um, but that brings us over here to the cool down lap where we have our Rose Thorn and Seed for this week. Justin, why don't you go ahead and kick it off?
So my rose for this episode here is just that Formula One is back. Things get weird for me over the summer break when there's no Formula One. It's the summer break and then the winter break. Things get real weird around here when there's no Formula One to follow. So just happy it's back. Love Zandvoort. Honestly, like
Hmm.
I said, I think it's an awesome track. So it's a fun one to come back to after the summer break. So yeah, just happy to be back in the swing of things. My thorn here, a bit of an interesting take, but you'll understand what I mean. So my thorn here is I've been growing as a therapist. I've been hard at work this summer developing some techniques. I've even been spending some time at the library. I've been teaching myself how to read so then I can get some information from these things called books. So learning how to read has been very, very optimal. But as you know, when you learn something, like truly, and now I'm speaking very seriously to you, Aaron. When you learn something, there is a feeling of like you were wrong. Like the old idea
Hmm.
has to be like unseated. Like something has to, in some ways, some things have to die for a like a new factor, a new idea to like take hold and like be the thing that your mind goes to now instead of this like old fact. For like an old fact to go, like something has to happen. There is a pain in learning, and sometimes the things that I'm learning create significant pain. significant pain because it'll bring me some image or conversation or whatever, and it's just, hey, look, here's an obvious example of you doing the thing that this is telling you not to do, or whatever it is, you know. So the process of learning can be difficult. And then my seed here, something else I've been working on. I've been trying to improve my movie review writing skills and like my critical thoughts around movies and being able to better transfer like the feeling that I have at the end of a movie into words. Like,
Hmm.
how can I better communicate that experience? Just I think my goal is somewhere around like 500 words or less. I'm not trying to be like incredibly verbose, but I'm trying to have like some more interesting thoughts than just, you know, like I like this thing and that song was that was good, you know, like those types of things. Because especially those aren't the reviews that I like reading, right? So I'm trying to be able to write the type of review that I would enjoy reading. So that's just something I've been working on. A couple recent movies that I tried it for was a film called Funny Games, and then I also watched the 2026 The Drama with Pattinson and
Hmm.
Zendaya, and so I did a review for those two films, which is like even that's out of my comfort zone. Normally, I'm like one review every probably 15 films. So I tried to do like for some of the most recent movies I watched, I tried to do a review for each of them. So just like working that muscle out basically. So just some of the things I've been working on in the last couple of weeks. That's my roast learned seed.
Nice. And with that, I feel like with it ties into the learning to read thing, but as you grow your vocabulary, I think that's like something that genuinely helps with how you describe things, like not falling, and it doesn't have to be some sort of like uh big SAT word, but yeah, like new descriptions and things like that that help your thoughts flow a little bit more smoothly and match what you're actually feeling. The other thing with the reading and learning and all, it's obviously tough to like kick that old habit or that old thought out entirely, but I feel like the more people learn in general, um, the more you realize you know nothing. Like they're
Yeah.
like this knowledge that you're gaining from these people are oftentimes people who have spent their life's effort on this one specific thing. And so if you can glean that and say, hey, this is someone who is way more experienced and smarter than me on XYZ topic, I feel like that can help with kicking that old thought out. You can't beat yourself up. You don't know what you don't know. So I think that's definitely a positive thing, even if it's a little bit of a thorn in the moment when you're going through those. Um, so yeah, but
No, for sure, and I do appreciate that. You don't know what you don't know. You're right, and becoming a lifelong learner, you know, puts us in a pretty good position. But Aaron, I'm curious, what's your flavor of the week, or well, no, what's your cool down lab? We've got rose thorn seed. Sorry, I'm reading your note here.
oh, I
You're
know. I forgot to switch that with the copy paste, but I'll start with my thorn this week. One thing that I'm learning about is all the different ways to try and unclog drain pipes. Our downstairs bathroom has been semi out of commission for a little bit, with a clog that was probably about 14 feet deep down the pipes, and my 15-foot pipe snake just shoved it to just past the 15 feet. So I'm being a little bit of a cheapskate homeowner and not and trying to figure this out on my own versus paying someone an obscene amount of money to push whatever the clog is further through until it clears the pipe. So I've been working my way through that for a couple days. I've got some tips from coworkers and all that I think will hopefully be fruitful. But that has been a little bit of a frustration for the past few days here. But my rose and seed kind of tie together this week, so I was able to go down for a couple days to the beach this past week with Colleen, and she was down there for most of the week with her family and all. So the days I was down, we got to spend some good time with her family, and in particular, our two older nieces, who are 8 and 10, and just getting to hang out with them on the beach, on the boardwalk, playing games in the arcades, hanging out back at the house and everything is just it's a blast, and I love getting a little bit of beach time in the summer. So that was a really nice, even though it was just a couple days for me because of work schedule and all, it was a really nice time. But from that, my seed is that our oldest niece is taking a liking to sushi, and so she's like, she likes Philadelphia rolls. She likes kind of the simple, easier way into sushi, and she wanted to adventure out and test some more. So we're planning out like a little sushi dinner to go out with her, get some good sushi, have her try some different stuff, expand her palate a little bit with that. And so I think we're all a little bit excited for that. Plus, I get to go eat sushi, so no complaints on my end. But that
Yeah, of
is
course
my
not.
my rose, thorn, and seed here for the week.
Yeah, dude, kids just got expensive taste. Like that's just all that means. Is like, ooh, like she yeah, opening her horizons. Like, nah, that's just an expensive date right there later in life, man.
I mean,
I mean, like sushi is like crazy tasty, but I will also say this: a Philadelphia roll is about the furthest thing from sushi that you can get.
from like, yeah,
But still on a sushi menu is the idea.
exactly. It's closing the gap from from nothing to it's much closer to real sushi than it is from where she was at previously. So we're
This is true.
working our way in. We just have to figure out the things she likes and doesn't like, and try and find some stuff that fits in there. So yeah, that should
Have
be.
you ever done have you ever done a boat, like a sushi boat? Have you ever experienced one of them where they like lay out a whole bunch? The idea is the boat's just like a very large serving platter, but it looks cool.
I have not. They've always been pretty intimidating looking. But
Okay.
Colleen and I have done a couple of omakases where they make the pieces, and it's just the individual pieces. They're making them like right in front of you and all, which is pretty cool. You don't eat quite as much as you would with a sushi boat, but you get some pretty tasty bites that way as well.
Yeah, and it's a bit well, and that's like a curated
It's like a whole
experience too.
experience.
Like
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, so that's
I don't
that's
know.
very
A
cool. No,
sushi boat sounds like an experience too, though.
just a different, very gluttonous kind of experience. Yeah.
Yes.
But what's
Oh,
interesting is like it's very in my experience, it's like pretty simple sashimis and sushis. It's just like a variety of them. Because yeah, I'm a big fan of the sashimis.
yeah. They're tasty, and so I think we'll have to probably try a couple of those when we get to go out for the sushi dinner date. And all to give her some more variety to test and expand
Oh
her
yeah.
horizons with sushi. But
Yeah, more
that,
than just cream cheese.
yeah, I mean, everyone likes a little bit of cream cheese, so uh it's actually, I guess a Philadelphia roll is almost more similar to like a bagel with lox than it is
Yeah.
to some real sushi. But we're working our way there. But before we get to the seaweeds, we will wrap out the cool down lap here, and that of course brings us to the end of the episode for the Dutch Grand Prix. As always, we really appreciate you all listening and taking some time of yours to spend with us.
New episodes after every single Formula One event. If there's a Formula One event, there's a Tyred Boys podcast episode after it, following on Monday. Episodes go live on streaming services Tuesday morning. So if you're enjoying the Tyred Boys podcast, come stick with us after every Formula One event. We appreciate you listening. We appreciate having you. Thank you very much for your time. Peace out, everyone.
See ya.